Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do a little bit of all things creepy. Whether that be me reading your guys' scary stories that you send in to me, which I do every single week, Monday through Friday, or me telling my own stories, talking about scary books, scary movies, Appalachian folklore, which I do all of that on the weekends. I switch them out. If that sounds cool to you, I would love to have you here. We do literally everything creepy here, and it's a fun time, and I love it. And I hope you love it. With that being said, though, please check out the description so that you can figure out where and how to send in your scary stories so I can read it. And there you'll also find podcast episode links because my husband and I have a podcast where we also tell stories, and my other social media links. So with all that being said, let's read some stories. This first story is from my childhood. I, 32 female, was born and raised in the Texas Hill Country. I still live here, only a 20-minute drive from my childhood home. A log cabin built in the early 80s. I was around 8 at the time of this story, and I was always a good sleeper as a kid, but one night that would all change due to a series of events that would span for over a week. Let me set the scene a little bit. My younger brother and I shared a room. We had a bunk bed that was separated, each bed placed on either side of the room. We had a small couch and table between the beds and a window on the wall behind the couch. Across from that was a small hutch with our TV. As I said before, I was a pretty good sleeper, and my little brother could sleep through just about anything. I was the kid that liked my blanket pulled up to my chin and to be surrounded by stuffed animals. I was completely unaware of what was about to happen. I was abruptly woken up. I didn't know by what, though. I laid there in silence facing the wall. No sounds that could have been the cause to wake me up, just the peaceful calm of the night. I was about to doze back off, but then it happened. A nudge on my arm. I quickly turned, expecting to see my little brother having gotten up for some reason, but how wrong I was. There, leaning through the closed window, was an all-black figure. To this day, I can't remember if it had eyes or not. My imagination wants to think it had red eyes, but deeper memories don't think it did. Eyes or not, it was looking right at me. I was too terrified to make a noise. I stared at this thing, frozen in fear. I don't know how long I laid there, unable to move or make a sound. Time stood still as it held my gaze. Then it moved its arm, reaching towards me. The fear of it touching me was enough to finally break my frozen state. I bolted out of bed and ran towards my parents' room. I was inconsolable. They were able to calm me down enough to understand through my cries that someone was in my room. My dad raced to my bedroom to confront whoever was stupid enough to break in, but there was nobody. And my brother, sound asleep. My mom walked me back to my room, and my dad asked where it was that I saw the person. I explained it to him that I saw it coming from the window. I watched as he unlocked the window and opened it, only to find an intact window screen. After much coaxing, I was calm enough that they felt that they could go back to bed. They made a show of closing and locking the window again. I'm not sure if I was woken up again that same night, but the figure in my window would be a regular occurrence every night for a week. I would wake up abruptly, and there it would be, leaning in and reaching toward me. At times it even grabbed my arm. Those were the nights that I ran to my parents' room, only for them to become increasingly agitated. Each time making a show of the window screen being in place and the window being closed and locked. Other times I would pull a blanket over my head and piled my stuffed animals on top of me, knowing that my parents would be upset if I woke them again, and maybe, just maybe, it would go away if I was under my blanket, but it never did. Sometimes it would pull the blanket down to continue to stare at me. Sometimes I would fall asleep again just to be woken back up, my blanket no longer over my head. By my own doing, by the figure in the window, my little brother, always fast asleep. As scary as all this was, it was nothing compared to what happened next. I don't know how I thought of it, but I came up with what I thought was the best plan ever to be thought of. The night my brother and I switched beds, aren't I such a great big sister? Everything went normal, our parents tucked us in, and we quickly fell asleep. It was all going according to plan until it didn't. I'm not sure what woke me up. It wasn't a nudge or a tug. It must have been my senses picking up on something not quite right. My eyes opened wide, just in time to see the black figure lean in through the window. I was frozen in fear again, just now realizing the position I put my brother in. I saw its hand reaching out toward my brother, then stopped. It leaned in closer, realizing the person in my bed was not me. Its head slowly turned, scanning the room, until finally its gaze landed on me. As if not to waste any more time, it reached out towards me again, but I wouldn't let it touch me, not this time. I jumped from my bed and ran to my parents. That would be the last time I ever saw the figure in my window. I'm not sure what prompted it to appear in the first place, nor what caused it to stop, but I'm thankful whatever the reason. The thought of it specifically looking at me will be forever seared into my memory. We moved a couple years later, and I sometimes wonder if the figure ever showed itself again and the new people moved in. My second story is from an event that took place around 5 to 6 years ago. I was a newly single mom in my mid-20s, and I found a quick friend and a girl I knew from school. We both grew up in that area, so we knew each other all throughout grade school and into high school. We lost touch after graduation, but reconnected a few years later over us both being single moms. Our sons were just a few years apart in age and loved playing together, so it made hanging out a breeze. She was also a bit of a homebody as well, so our get-togethers were very chill and could easily last all day, especially if they were held at her place, which they usually were. As much as we enjoyed having get-togethers at her place, though, I'm not sure what it was about certain areas of her house that threw me off. For the most part, it was an inviting house, full of a light and welcoming energy, but for some reason the entertainment room just felt off. I do not claim to be clairvoyant or anything of that sort, these two events being the only 2 times I've actually seen anything, but from time to time I will get the sense of a place feeling off. My friend lived just a couple of blocks away from me, so we were never in a rush to call it a day if our sons were playing well. One particular hangout was running quite a bit later than usual into the evening before my friend and I decided to call it a day. Night, more accurately, as it was well into being dark by this time. We began helping the kids with picking up the toys and getting things in general tidied up. The toy room was just a short ways down the hall from the entertainment room. I was helping the kids gather toys from the entertainment room. They would bring them to the toy room for my friend to help put them away. As I mentioned, it was dark out by this time, and the entertainment room was kind of dim. It happened so quickly, I wasn't even sure at first what actually had happened. As I was leaning down to pick up a toy, I saw a dark, small, childlike figure dash across the other side of the room and behind the small podium-like table. I watched it for a moment, my brain needing to catch up with what I just saw. I stood quietly, waiting, hoping for a noise. The rattle of a toy or one of the boys' voices, anything to indicate that it was one of them that had just come back into the room. But my gut instantly knew something wasn't right. It was like a lead weight sitting in my stomach, making me sick. A chill running down my spine. I called out to my friend, asking if the kids were with her, and she called back, confirming that they had been with her. Thankfully, the toy that I had been reaching down for was the last one. I quickly brought it back to the toy room. My fear must have been apparent on my face, or voice, even though I had not tried to show it. My friend began asking me if everything was okay, so I told her that it was. I was just tired, and that it was time for my son and I to go. The next day, my friend called me to make sure I was okay. How do you tell a friend that you saw something in their house? But she was the sort of friend that I was open and honest with. I explained to her what I saw, and she was quiet for a moment. Taking it in, after letting out a deep sigh, she replied, "Yeah, I've seen it too. I never saw it again after that." Why didn't she warn you? Why didn't she warn you? I guess, some people aren't really, open with paranormal stuff. I just tell people about my house when they come in. I'm like, you need to say hi to this painting and avoid this room. Alright, next story. I watched your latest YouTube video regarding your series of terrifying and unfortunate events. I've been a viewer for maybe 3 years now, starting out on TikTok and now YouTube. Thank you. First off, I'm really sorry you're going through these things. It's very draining and terrifying because your home should be a sanctuary of peace and safety. There are a few methods that seem strange that I would love for you to implement and see if there's a decrease in activity. I've been a practicing shaman for 5 years, having experienced paranormal and terrifying experiences for my entire life. I'm dealing with a family curse for one currently. I can update you on that later if you're interested. Absolutely. Family curse stories terrify me, but intrigue me. From everything I've seen for the past 3 years I've been watching you, it could be a classic case of the Fae. The ones in Appalachia are particularly nasty, and I'm under the belief that there are different types of Fae that humans haven't yet put a name to. It's funny, so I did figure out that it was the Fae, at least in part. It was whenever this was happening. If you're confused, I will link that video below. But I had teeth left in my house. It ended up being a gift from the Fae. That situation was the Fae, but the other situation was, funny enough, the dolls that I brought in from my family's farm that somehow made it out of their locked box that I didn't know about. So you're correct with the Fae. My recommendation is to purchase a large box of iron nails. A lot of nails nowadays aren't pure iron, so this may be hard to find. Get your hands on some holy oil blessed by an ordained priest. Again, might be hard to find. Burn the holy oil and run the nails through the flames or smoke, and place the nails around your house as a protective barrier. I know this may sound strange to read, but rather unorthodox to the spiritual community, but these entities are no joke. After pushing out whatever may be in your home, I try to use Palo Santo, very explosive and good for disrupting what I'd call solid masses of gross energy that whatever this entity has left behind has made its home in. Push out the now dislodged masses with lavender sage and a feather, and then start some incense. Then after whatever's in the house has been removed, set the iron nails around your house, not in a particular order or fashion, but I'd place the nails on the ground maybe a foot from the walls of your house. Think of your property as a fortress. Your home should be the most heavily protected, but as entities get closer, there needs to be defenses that make getting closer not worth the effort. Defending the home base is most important. Okay, so a few things with that. I do have iron outside of my property. It's not for the fae per se, it's more for the things that just lurk in the woods of Appalachia. The Appalachian fae are really no joke, but I had a lot of people give me a theory on. So, whenever those teeth were left at the same time those dolls got out of their locked thing, and someone was like, what if the fae were trying to give that to you as a gift of protection? But I kind of wonder if the fae are the one that let them out of the box. I don't know though, because they're both outside. Like the dolls are outside, and anytime I've had a fae encounter, it's usually been outside in the garden. So could be anything. But I do have nails outside. I recommend iron outside the property quite a bit for the things in the woods. I didn't know it protected against the fae. I don't really have a problem with the fae. I just know you're not supposed to accept their gifts if you don't want to do workings with them, and I don't. So I'm just really careful with how I handle gifts, as long as I know they're gifts. But anyways, thank you so much for that advice. Luckily, after I out loud did my little mantra of not wanting the gifts, buried the teeth, and then put the dolls back, we're sitting pretty now. So thank goodness. All right, next story. This story takes place starting in 2023 to present day. I'm currently getting evaluated for schizophrenia. I live in a city, but my family's had a house near the ski mountains. All of this information is important. We got our upstate house the summer of 23, which is when my paranormal activity started. For context, the house was the first house we looked at, and my parents bought it without a second thought, which was very out of the ordinary for them. It's a small property with two houses, one for my family and the other for my family's close friends. Across from the house, there's a public pool and a playground. A little bit away from that playground is a large open field and miles of forest behind that. I've always loved the forest and loved just walking through it whenever it was warm enough to. My bedroom was very small and had a closet that my parents removed so that I could have more space. When we removed the closet, it revealed the only trapdoor to the attic that we didn't know existed. There was no listing of an attic when we bought the house. Instantly, I got a sinking feeling and begged my parents to make sure the attic could never be opened. They obliged, and I haven't had problems with it yet, but that feeling should have been my first clue. I've always loved listening to the stories about the Appalachian Trail, so I know the rules if anything weird ever went on during one of my forest walks. One day, I want to say mid-June, I was walking through the forest with my best friend. We were walking to a nearby lake that we love to hang out by. Suddenly, I trip on something, and I look to see a deer antler. It had moss growing on it, so I assumed it had been there for a while, which was weird because I had taken that exact path the day before. When I looked up to show my friend, she was staring into the woods, frozen. I asked her what was wrong, and she just pointed deep into the woods. Instantly, I looked down at the ground, knowing that whatever she saw shouldn't be acknowledged. I told her to do the same, and we walked back to the road, and then we followed it to get back to the house. She did as I said, probably due to the tone of my voice. The entire time we were walking, we heard whistling, and then something calling her name. It didn't sound human at all. It sounded almost recorded. We finally made it back to the road and to the house. I haven't had a problem with it, and neither has my friend since, but recently I went back to the house to go skiing. I was laying in bed when I saw a shadow from my window with antlers. It was whispering my friend's name. I don't know why it's so attracted to her and only around my house, but it's terrifying, and I don't know what it is. If you have any advice, I would love to hear it, but hopefully it's all in my head, and my friend was just playing along and trying to scare me. Thank you for listening. Update. I wrote this during a free period at school, then 2 hours later I went to lunch and saw it fully for the first time in the reflection of a car that had followed me back to the city. It was tallish, with pitch black fur and a deer skull for a face along with giant twisted antlers, the same antler that I had tripped on those many moons ago in the forest. I know I should be scared, like I had been before, but recently I've been feeling a bit darker presence. The antler being is protecting me. I'm now riding this on the subway, and I feel this presence and hear the whistling. When the train's quiet, maybe I'm crazy or maybe he is protecting me. I don't know, but I feel safe. So just be careful, because depending on what it is, that could be very dangerous, and that feeling you're getting could be kind of a trick. Just keep your guard up while also simultaneously ignoring it. If you see it or anything, try not to acknowledge it until it loses interest. Something else is probably there protecting you. I don't think it's that being. I could be wrong. I don't feel like it's that being, though. Alright, next story. As a child, I had a constant and persistent nightmare up until I became a preteen. A lot of these nightmares are pretty horrific. One in particular I remember was of me wandering through the rooms of my home, open plan so it's very wide, and all of my family members were stood facing the walls away from me and mumbling under their breath that they hated me, which is really weird because I have a very comfortable and happy relationship with them. Anyways, when I was around 5, I had these reoccurring dreams of this woman protecting me from these dark, shadowy figures trying to grab me. She stood with her back to me and her arms outstretched to her sides. The dreams never went beyond my view of looking up at her as she protected me from these creepy shadows. But I know a lot about her. Like, I knew her name. This becomes important later. And I knew she wore a turtleneck with long pants because she was covered in burn marks. I knew that she was in an accident, but I never actually talked to her in my dreams. I just knew these things. After about 6 years of this reoccurring dream and still experiencing nightmares every other night, it changed. It started the same as all the others, her standing there protecting me, but then the shadow figures kind of twisted and dissolved away. I watched as the woman put her arms down and looked over her shoulder at me. She smiled and told me that it was okay, and that I was safe. And then I wake up. After that experience, I didn't have another dream or nightmare until my final year of high school, although they're still, to this day, extremely rare for me. Now, there are two weird things about this dream lady. Firstly, I could remember her face perfectly, to this day, in perfect, crystal clear clarity, which is particularly weird because I have facial blindness, a condition common with autism where one cannot remember faces. I can't even recognize my own face in the mirror. Usually in my dreams and nightmares, people are faceless, just big black holes where a face should go. The second weird thing happened in my last year of high school. Right after I started dreaming again, my sister came down from university to hang out for a few days. And I was telling her about how weird it was that I was dreaming while she straightened her hair. Then when I got to the part about the woman I saw in my dreams when I was a kid, my sister slowly turned and stared at me for a while as I was telling it. She began questioning me about what the woman in my dream looked like, her clothes, her hair, and her name. Then she revealed that when she was a preteen, she began dreaming of the same woman, but in her dreams, they would sit on her bed and chat. Same ginger hair, same freckles, blue eyes. There was only two main differences. In my sister's dream, she would dress in outfits inspired by different time periods, French Revolution, Renaissance, etc. In my sister's dreams, her name was Annabelle. In mine, her name was Annabeth. It really creeped us out, and we questioned our older sibling if they had had an experience with her, and they said no, so it was just my sister and I. Which isn't that weird, because we had other creepy paranormal experiences in the past together. I'll add it to the end of this one. So my sister and I started to theorize who Annabelle or Annabeth was, and I'm pretty convinced she's a deceased family member of some kind, mostly because the blue eyes, freckles, and ginger hair are both traits in our family tree. The ginger tends to skip a couple generations, though. I only have one cousin with ginger hair, and no one else alive at this moment has it. Sadly, we cannot confirm or deny if Annabelle or Annabeth was a real woman because we lost all the records from earlier that my grandparents on both sides of my sister and I both think she's from earlier than that. I personally believe that she was an artist or an illustrator of some kind because both me and my sister are the only artists currently alive in the family. My mom's mom was a comic illustrator in her youth, but she passed a while before I even decided I wanted to pursue a comic illustration myself. None of the rest of the family have any interest or talents in art, while my sister and I were both considered gifted in art when we were younger and both still draw to this day. Anyways, on to my sister and I's second weird kind of paranormal experience. My maternal grandmother passed barely a week after we met her for the first time. I want to say my sister and I were around 13 and 9, and we didn't go to the funeral because we had school and it would be a plane ride. I have a severe phobia of heights, and my sister gets carsick in planes. So we were home while my mother went to the funeral. I think my dad or paternal grandparents were looking after us, but I cannot actually remember who. Anyway, my sister and I were playing in the backyard. It was rural Australia, so it was less of a backyard and more of a large patch of sand and gum trees that our house sat on. While my sister and I were playing, my sister sees this really weird looking bird. It looked like a peacock's colors were slapped on a finch or a budgie's body. It was perched on the side of some small scaffolding we had set up on the planter boxes for the plants to vine on. And my sister, ever the idiot, decides to walk up to it and look at it or something. She expects it to fly away, but it doesn't. This confused my sister and I because we've grown up with birds our whole lives. Our mom raises budgies and had a major Mitchell when I was younger. So we know most wild birds would go screaming for the hills the moment a slight movement is made in their direction, especially small ones. So my sister calls me over and we stare at it a moment before she reaches out to touch it in an attempt to get it to fly away, thinking it was injured or ill, but it didn't do anything. It just sat there perfectly still. Now, if you have ever interacted with a small bird, you know that when they're freaked out, their breathing goes fast. You could visibly see its stomach rapidly beating up and down, but this bird was still as ever, just sat there looking at us. This led my sister and I to be entranced for about 20 minutes before it calmly turned and flew off into the sky. All I remember after that was my sister staring after it for a long moment before muttering, "That was Grandma, you know," and I nodded along with her. Now, something you must know about our maternal grandmother is that she loved birds, peacocks in particular. She thought they were gorgeous and had coasters and decor of them, and I've never seen a bird, online or real life, that looks like the one we saw. Its coloring was so unique that it was impossible to live out in the wild. My sister and I did consider that it could have been a pet or something that flew off, but again, never seen a bird like that in my life. There was never a post or anything in our community Facebook before or since about someone losing a bird, and it didn't have a foot tag, which is required where I live. So unless someone was running some exotic bird breeding ring, I doubt it was a pet. My sister thinks it may have been diseased or sick, which is why it was so calm and looked so weird. But it was close to the cage where our mom's budgie lived, and they were never affected, and usually when birds are sick and lethargic, they would lay down and struggle to perch. But this bird perched straight for 20 minutes, so I personally believe it was a sign from our grandma. Oddly enough to me, this Annabelle or Annabeth thing freaks me out to this day, while the bird doesn't really bother me, but my sister's the opposite. So I hope that was a fun encounter for you. I know you read a lot of horrific ones, so I hope this was a nice breather. Honestly, the Annabelle Annabeth one kind of scared me, but the bird one was nice. That definitely sounds like it could have been a visit from your grandmother. I love that. But anyways, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. We have another story from Dustin, and you guys know that I am excited as heck to read it, so let's get into it. Morgan, I never thought going to the gym could get someone to lose their life. Josh and I had finally decided to get in shape together. We made a pact, no excuses, no skipping workouts. We'd push each other and make sure neither of us slacked. For the first few weeks, it was great. We went every evening, same time, same routine. The gym wasn't super crowded, and we got to know some of the regulars. Then, I get into a car accident. A deer jumped out in front of my Mini Cooper, and I became buddies with a tree, head on. I was hurt, but it was nothing major, not enough to mess me up. My left hand had been slammed into the window from the airbags. But I got a hairline fracture, and the doctor said no heavy lifting for at least a month. At first, we tried to focus on cardio, but that didn't last long. I told Josh to keep going without me. I shouldn't have done that. At first, he said it was fine. He missed having me there, but he was sticking to our plan. Then about a weekend, he mentioned that he'd found a new gym buddy, some guy named Riley. Was I jealous? No. Okay, maybe a little. Being replaced tends to hurt. I didn't even ask him, Josh told me over the phone. He just kind of showed up one day and started working out next to me. It was weird, but I figured whatever. He's strong as hell, so it's kind of motivating. Something about it made me uneasy, but it wasn't just the jealousy. Did you know him before? I asked. No, Josh said, but he knows me. That threw me off. Josh laughed. Dude, he knows everything. He knew I came in at 7 p.m., and he knew I always started with a bench press. Hell, he even asked me where you were and said he hoped you were okay. That made my stomach twist. I had never seen this guy, never met him, but he knew who I was. I told Josh to be careful, but he just brushed it off. Then things got worse. One night I get a text from Josh. Dude, I think Riley followed me home. I called him immediately. Josh sounded out of breath, and he told me Riley had been acting off all week, showing up earlier than him, waiting by the machines Josh used, never looking away. And tonight when Josh left, he saw Riley's car behind him. Not right away, not in the parking lot, miles later. And every turn Josh made, Riley made too. I lost him, Josh said, but I could hear the shake in his voice. I'm probably just being paranoid. He wasn't. That was the last time we talked. The next day I woke up to missed calls from an unknown number. I called back. It was the police. Josh was missing. His car was found abandoned outside the gym, and his phone was in the front seat. The screen cracked. The last thing he had searched. How to tell if you're being followed. The gym had security cameras, but there was a problem. There was no footage of Josh leaving. 1 minute he was inside, finishing up his workout. Then the next, gone. And Riley? No record of him. No last name, no membership under his name. No car matching the one Josh described. It was like he never existed. But I knew he did. Because every night since, at exactly 7 p.m., my phone would buzz with a text from an unknown number. The message is always the same. Hey, need a gym buddy? Oof. Chills. Chills every time. Every time. 10 out of 10. No notes.